I'm going to tell you a story from ancient times. From when gods still walked the earth, when fairies made the forests their home, when magic and miracles were part of everyday life. This is not just a love story. This is the story of how pride can turn into disaster, how words can become weapons, and how love can sometimes turn into poison. In the shadow of Mount Olympus, among the misty valleys, in the lush green forests where humans rarely ventured, there lived special beings. Nymphs, spirits of nature, guardians of water sources, trees and mountains. Among these nymphs lived a young girl, a forest nymph. Her name was Echo. Echo was different from the other nymphs. She was beautiful, of course, just like her sisters. But her real special talent was something else. Her voice. Oh, that voice. Crystal clear, full of melody, flowing like honey to the ear. But Echo's true gift wasn't just speaking beautifully. She was a master in the art of storytelling. Once she started talking, she would tell captivating stories for hours, without stopping, without interruption. Every morning when the sun rose, Echo would wander through the forest. She would chat with the birds. She would whisper stories to the trees. She would sing lullabies to the wind. The other nymphs would gather around her, listening to her for hours. Because Echo didn't just enjoy talking. She had the power to influence people, gods, everyone. But this talent wasn't always a blessing. Sometimes it seemed like a curse, because Echo was insatiable. Before one story ended, she would start another. Before one topic closed, she would open a new one, as if she had an infinite treasury of words inside her. She would talk as if it would never end. On Olympus, another story was unfolding. Zeus, king of the gods, was married to the goddess Hera. But Zeus was not a faithful husband, quite the opposite. He was constantly chasing other women, especially beautiful nymphs. And this situation was driving Hera mad. Hera was so tired of her husband's infidelities that she was now constantly following him. Every day, every hour, she tried to find out where Zeus was, who he was with. And one day, her suspicions had peaked again. Zeus had descended to the forest again. He was meeting with nymphs. Hera knew this. With anger, with wrath, she descended from the clouds. She advanced rapidly toward the forest. She was about to catch Zeus red-handed. Finally, she would have proof. But just then, Echo appeared. Beautiful, innocent-looking Echo stood before Hera, and she began to talk. First, she greeted her politely. Then she talked about the weather. Then about the beauties of the forest. Then about a deer she saw the other day. Then about that deer's fawn. Then general information about fawns. Hera listened. She grew impatient. She wanted to pass. But Echo wouldn't give up. She moved on to another topic, then another. Stories piled upon each other. Minutes stretched. Half an hour passed. An hour passed. And during this time, Zeus and his nymph friends had escaped. They had disappeared without a trace. Hera finally understood. This was a delay, a deliberate delay. Echo had kept her occupied to protect Zeus. The goddess's eyes blazed with fury. Her face reddened, her hands clenched into fists. The silence was terrifying. For the first time, Echo couldn't speak. She had swallowed her tongue from fear. The rage before her was something she had never seen. Hera's voice echoed through the forest like thunder. She spoke her curse. The words hung in the air. The spell had begun. Echo noticed immediately. She opened her mouth, wanting to apologize, but no sound came out. She tried again. Silence again. Then Hera murmured something, to test. And from Echo's mouth, unwillingly, came Hera's last words. Only those. Nothing else. The curse was sealed. Echo would no longer be able to say her own words. She could only repeat the last words she heard. This endlessly talkative nymph had now been silenced in the most terrible way. Days passed. Weeks passed. Echo retreated into the depths of the forest. She could no longer spend time with her friends because she couldn't have a real conversation with them. She could only repeat their last words, like a parrot. This was humiliating. It was painful. It was isolating. The old, cheerful, talkative Echo was gone. What remained was a silent, sad, lonely shadow. She would cry through the nights. During the days, she would wander aimlessly through the forest. Life had lost its meaning until she saw him that day. In the same forests, a completely different life was being lived. There was a young man named Narcissus. He was 16 years old, but he had such beauty that even the gods would envy. His golden blonde hair shone in the sun. His blue eyes were like the sea. His facial features were so perfect that it was as if he had been carved from marble by a sculptor. But Narcissus wasn't just beautiful on the outside. He was also incredibly talented. He was very successful at hunting. He was fast at running. He was strong at wrestling. He did everything perfectly, and he knew it. He knew it very well. From a young age, Narcissus had constantly received praise. His mother would tell him how handsome he was. His father would talk about how talented he was. Villagers would be amazed when they saw him. Young girls would sigh after him. All this praise had planted a poisonous seed inside Narcissus. Pride, self-conceit, an unshakable belief that he was superior to everyone. By the time he turned 16, there wasn't a young girl left who hadn't fallen in love with Narcissus. From his village, from neighboring villages, even from distant cities, girls would come to see him. They would declare their love to him. They would write poems. They would bring gifts. But Narcissus would respond to all of them with the same coldness. He wouldn't like any of them. They were all inadequate for him. They weren't worthy of his beauty. Some were too ordinary, some not elegant enough, some not smart enough. It wasn't just girls either. Men would also fall in love with Narcissus. But the result was the same. Rejection. Cold, merciless, humiliating rejection. Narcissus was ruthless even in his rejections. He would laugh in people's faces. He would mock them. He would find their weak points and press on them. He would break hearts, hurt pride, then never look back. How many young girls had cried because of him? How many young men had lost hope? Nobody knew. But it was many, many, and all these pains were being noted somewhere in the sky. The gods were watching everything, and especially one goddess was following all of this very closely. Nemesis, the goddess of revenge and justice, the one who punished the arrogant, the one who provided balance, the goddess who corrected injustices. Nemesis had been watching Narcissus for a long time. Every rejection, every contempt, every heartbreak was recorded, and Nemesis was waiting patiently and determinedly, because choosing the right moment to give punishment was necessary. Echo, meanwhile, was still wandering in the forest, alone, silent, unhappy. She could no longer communicate with anyone. She just disappeared among the shadows. Days resembled each other. Every day the same pain, the same loneliness, the same helplessness. Until one spring morning, when everything changed. Echo was walking in the forest as always. She was listening to the chirping of birds. She was hearing the rustling of leaves. Suddenly a sound came from afar, a human voice, a male voice. Her heart quickened. She hadn't seen a human in months. Curiously, she moved toward the sound. She looked secretly from among the trees, and she saw him. Narcissus was returning from hunting. Sunlight hit his hair. A drop of sweat sparkled on his forehead. He was walking with a smile, and Echo's world changed in an instant. What was this feeling? This warmth in her chest? This pounding? This shortness of breath? She had never experienced such a thing before, but she knew from stories. This was love. Beautiful, young, handsome Narcissus. As Echo looked at him, she forgot all the problems in the world. She forgot her curse. She forgot her loneliness. There was only him. There was only that moment. Narcissus moved forward, passed by, moved away. But he remained in Echo's mind. That day, that night, the next day. She constantly thought of him. She wondered where he was. She imagined what he was doing. She wanted to see him again. Definitely. And in the forest, she began to wander in the same places. Maybe she would see him again. Maybe luck would be on her side. And a week later, they met again. Narcissus was hunting again. But this time he had chased after a deer and lost its trail. He had gotten lost in the depths of the forest. He was looking left and right. He couldn't find the way back. Echo saw him. Her heart leapt from its place. This was an opportunity. Maybe they could talk. Maybe she could express herself. But how? She could only repeat the last words. How could she tell her love? This way. Narcissus was thinking aloud, a bit confused, a bit uncomfortable. Getting lost was unacceptable for him. Failing tarnished his perfection. Then he shouted. He would make his voice heard. Maybe someone would answer. Echo's heart jumped. This was the chance. She could answer, but what could she say? She could only repeat Narcissus's words. Narcissus waited. Silence. Then from afar his own voice came, but as if a woman was saying it. Soft, sweet, melodic. He was surprised. Interesting. Someone was in the depths of the forest. Who could it be? He called out again. This time he used different words, and again the same words came back. But with that sweet, mysterious voice, Narcissus was curious, but he was also a bit uncomfortable. Who could this be? Why were they hiding? Why couldn't they form a complete sentence? He commanded, with a certain authority, with an aristocratic manner. He wanted them to come out. Echo panicked. What would she do? The command had come back. She had repeated it. But Narcissus didn't understand. Then she needed to show herself. She took a deep breath. She gathered her courage. And she came out from behind the trees. Narcissus turned and saw her. It was a nymph. She was beautiful. But for Narcissus, not beautiful enough. No one could be as beautiful as him after all. Echo walked toward him. She extended her hands. Her eyes were full of hope. Maybe she could touch him. Maybe she could embrace him. Maybe in that moment, without words, she could show her love. But Narcissus stepped back. His facial expression changed, from surprise to disgust, from confusion to anger. And he spoke. Cold, sharp, merciless words. Rejection. Complete rejection. No chance. Never. I will never be with you. Echo stopped. The world spun. The words echoed in her ears. But because of her curse, the same words came from her own mouth. I will never be with you. She had to speak her own rejection. Herself. Narcissus laughed cruelly. How ridiculous this was. A nymph who could only repeat his words. How absurd. How funny. Then he turned his back. He continued on his way. He never looked back. Echo just stood there. Tears came. But this time, she couldn't stop them. They flowed like a flood. Her heart was broken. It was shattered. She was already alone, already cursed. Now she had also been rejected. Cruelly, humiliatingly rejected. That day, Echo returned to the forest. But this time it was different. She had no will to live anymore. She didn't eat. She didn't drink water. She just sat in a cave. She cried and cried and cried. As the days passed, her body weakened. Her hands became very thin. Her face paled. The light in her eyes went out. Her skin clung to her bones. Flesh melted away, and finally, nothing remained. The flesh disappeared. The bones turned to stone. Her body completely vanished. Only one thing remained. Her voice. That beautiful, melodic, cursed voice. Echo had now become a spirit, invisible, untouchable. But her voice remained. It still remained. And that voice continued to echo in the forest, in the mountains, in the valleys. An eternal voice, repeating others' words. Narcissus, meanwhile, continued his life. He didn't even think about Echo. She was just a nymph. There were dozens of them. None of them mattered. But in the sky, Nemesis had seen enough. She couldn't wait any longer. The time for punishment had come. Nemesis watched Narcissus. She learned which paths he took, where he went, when he was alone. And she made her plan. It was summer. The weather was hot. Narcissus was hunting again. He had run all day, sweating. He was tired. He was thirsty. Nemesis guided him in a certain direction. With subtle touches, with small coincidences, she showed the way without him noticing. And Narcissus reached the perfect lake. The lake was in the heart of the forest. Deep, clear, still. Its surface was like a mirror. There was no ripple. There was no current. It was as if time had stopped there. Narcissus was tired. He was thirsty. He went to the shore of the lake. He knelt. He bent down. He was going to drink water. And he saw a face. A face on the surface of the water. Perfect. Flawless. Incredibly beautiful. Golden hair, blue eyes, graceful features, divine beauty. Narcissus was shocked. Who was this? He had never seen such beauty before. Even more beautiful than himself. Was this possible? His hand reached out. He wanted to touch. But when his fingers touched the water, the image rippled, disappeared. He quickly pulled back his hand. He waited. The image slowly returned. He tried again, slowly, gently, but the result was the same. The water was disturbed. The image was lost. Maybe he could kiss? He brought his lips close to the water, but the same thing happened again. The image scattered. Narcissus didn't understand. Who was this beautiful being? A water fairy? A goddess? Why was it impossible to touch them? Hours passed. Narcissus didn't get up from there. He couldn't take his eyes away. This face, this beauty, had enchanted him. For the first time, truly, deeply, madly, he had fallen in love. He spoke to the water. He said sweet words. He showered compliments. He declared his love. But no answer came. Only the beautiful being across from him was also speaking. But no sound came out. In the distance, invisible, Echo was listening. Every word of Narcissus was piercing her heart. These were the words she once wanted spoken to her. But now they were being said to someone else. She was suffering again. She was watching again. She was helpless again. Night came. Narcissus was still there. Moonlight illuminated the water. The beautiful face was still there. Maybe it was even more beautiful. Now, morning came. Narcissus was still looking. His eyes had become bloodshot. But it didn't matter. Looking at this beauty was worth everything. Days passed. Narcissus didn't eat. He didn't drink water. He just looked and looked and looked. His body weakened. His hands began to tremble. His color faded. But his eyes were still locked on that beautiful face. A week passed. Narcissus was very weak now. It was hard for him to move, but he still didn't leave there. He couldn't leave. This love was too powerful. And finally, one morning, he understood the truth. He looked at the water. He raised his hand. The hand in the water also rose. He tilted his head. The head in the water also tilted. He smiled. The face in the water also smiled. Shock, horror, disbelief. This was himself. What he saw in the water was his own reflection. The person he fell in love with was himself. Should he laugh? Should he cry? He didn't know. All this time he had been looking at his own face. He had fallen in love with his own beauty, and now what could he do? How could he reach himself? It was impossible, completely impossible. This was the most painful, most tragic, most hopeless love. Tears came. For the first time he truly cried. All that pride, all that arrogance melted away in an instant. Only pain remained. As he gave his last breath, he slowly whispered. He said goodbye, both to himself, to his love, to his life. And Echo, invisible in the distance, repeated the same words. Goodbye. Final goodbye. Narcissus's body remained there, by the shore of the lake. But the next morning, a miracle happened. Where the body had been, a beautiful white and yellow flower had bloomed. The narcissus flower. It was still leaning toward the water, as if searching for its own reflection. The story ends like this, but in reality, it never ends. Because Echo's voice still echoes in the mountains. Narcissus flowers still bloom by the shores of lakes. And the lesson is still valid. Pride destroys a person. Looking down on others is ultimately preparing one's own end. Words can be weapons. With them, hearts are broken, souls are burned. And love, true love, is losing yourself. Not being able to see anyone but yourself is not love. It's a curse. Narcissus learned this. Echo learned it too. Both paid the price. A heavy price. This story has been told for thousands of years, and it's still relevant, because pride never changes. People still admire themselves. They still look down on others. They still use words like weapons. And some still look in mirrors and fall in love with themselves, without seeing true love, true connection, true humanity. I hope this story reminds you of the end of pride, of the power of love, and of the weight of words.